Welcome to Chatting the Pictures. My name is Cara Finnegan, and I'm a writer, teacher, and historian of photography.
And I'm Michael Shaw. I'm a writer, a psychologist, and also publisher of Reading the Pictures.
This photo concentrates on the horror of Russian war crimes and the mass graves being uncovered in Ukraine.
Nicole Tung took this photo for the New York Times on September 16, 2022. It's a portrait of a recovery team at a large gravesite in the forest of Izium in northeastern Ukraine. Russian soldiers occupied the city for 6 months until a surprise Ukrainian counteroffensive forced them to flee. So far, the investigation has revealed one mass burial of 17 Ukrainian Army soldiers and at least 445 mainly unmarked individual graves. This follows similar discoveries in recent months in Bucha and Mariupol.
I'm really struck by the way Nicole Tung has created an image that features some contrast. So first, we could say that there's a lot of linearity going on in this photograph. We've got vertical lines of the trees, the shovels in the hands of the men in the photograph kind of echo that verticality of the trees. And then those vertical lines are bisected by what we might describe as the horizontal line of those soldiers, workers, investigators, the folks who are there to witness and address what's happened at this scene. Despite this linearity, Tung shows us enough of the foreground to suggest that there's chaos that we're not seeing. And that is a forest of mass graves, a tragedy that is not rational or linear. And that kind of twisted nature of the trees and branches in the foreground, I think, really highlights that.
It's a stunningly emotional and incredibly detailed image. And the power of the photo is its focus on the workers, the trauma, and the emotional toll of the task they're facing. It's also powerful for what you don't see. You don't see the graves. You don't see the named or numbered grave markers. You don't see the body bags. That being the case, it's just a haunting portrait with these incredibly expressive faces in a pine forest. It's the army of exhumation.
I'm also struck by the way that the blue of the gowns that the men are wearing and the red that you see on the handles of some of those shovels really contrast visually with what we can very easily call the earth tones of the rest of the environment, the green of the trees, the brown of the tree trunks, and the ground in front of them. And it's almost as if all of that blue and those little slashes of red are saying, you know what happened here is actually not natural. And those shovels don't look well used, do they? Some of them have stickers on them that look like maybe they just might have been requisitioned or come out of storage from somewhere. The men in the front row are leaning on shovels that appear to not be dirty or used at all. So you also get this sense that they are just at the very beginning of a task, and maybe a task that they literally were not equipped for until now.
The fact that these deaths and exhumations are happening so close in time to the atrocity is quite unique. And that's compared to, processes that we've seen all over the world in Guatemala, Argentina, certainly the former Yugoslavia. But here, the grief and the trauma is still fresh, as opposed to those other processes happening years and years later. Here, what's happening is in near real time.
In light of what you said about temporality, I thought it was interesting that one commentator in the New York Times contrasted this quote unquote burial with the dignified way that Queen Elizabeth II was honored after her death. And we certainly can think about the contrast there. And it speaks to the value of honoring the dead and the job that these folks are going to have to do to try to provide some semblance of that same honor to the people buried in this place.